Matters with Paul Rosen.
Our diets, our Western diets in America are just really, you just don't realize how poor they really are.
What would you say to others who would like to feel better?
Sometimes you need to find the instruction. That's where the testing and everything comes in, because without that knowledge, there's no way I could have got to the point where I'm at today.
Straight talk about health.
And then I start preaching and telling them what I've been doing. And this guy named Paul Rosen has changed my life.
With your host, Paul Rosen.
By the way, the information contained in this program is not approved by the FDA, nor intended to treat, diagnose, or claim to cure any medical condition or disease as defined by Western medicine. However, skilled practitioners of many disciplines have found nutrition response testing to be a highly reliable supportive technology for assessing the health and fitness of the body's functional system.
You're pointing to me.
I did, because it's your turn to talk.
Oh.
So, digestive health.
One of the most predominant symptoms that people experience, where hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on symptom alleviation as opposed to root cause fix, is acid reflux. And acid reflux basically is technically defined by Western medicine as experiencing 2 or more episodes of feeling burning or in your stomach, and they persist despite over-the-counter medications. This says medications, could be prescription too, but basically medications.
Could you even change your diet? Maybe you think, well, maybe if I just stop eating pizza and chili late at night, I can get rid of that burning, and maybe you make those adjustments, and it continues. Would that, by definition, be acid reflux?
You're so aggressive.
Aggressive? In what way? Here I think I'm such a laid-back, polite guy.
We want to talk more about this. We're setting it up.
Okay.
We're not getting to the resolution.
But I was asking a question there, which I think is relevant, or maybe it's not.
It is relevant.
Okay.
It's totally relevant.
And I had pizza and chili on my mind, so
and
I thought I would just toss that in there.
And you had pizza and chili on your mind, and that glass of Coke next to your right arm. There.
Well, along with the
what can I do,
pizza.
Folks? I've tried. I've done my best to influence Rod and his eating habits, but we don't judge.
Now, here's the thing. If you had that video camera turned on me, everybody could see you just made up the Coke thing. I have no Coke here. Everybody should know. Precisely
the reason why I have the camera
only
turned on me.
Over on you. Okay. So continue with that thought.
So the symptoms of acid reflux, as I suggested, were burning sensations behind the breastbone, belching with a sour taste or regurgitation, painful swallowing that doesn't seem to go away or abate in any way. 15 million people experience this condition. 15 million, that's just in the States. 50% of men and women between the ages of 45 and 64. But I will tell you, in my clinic, acid reflux can begin much, much earlier.
Also, the way you describe it, Paul, it sounds more serious than just general heartburn.
According to a big pharma website, whose name I shall not mention, this condition can't be cured. Meaning, you have a perfect business plan for big pharma to supply anti-acid medications, right? Until you die.
So all they're saying is you can alleviate the issue, but as you just said, you can't fix it.
Just not true. You have to know what your nutritional deficiencies and barriers to healing are. Barriers to healing are the environmental influences that affect the functions of the body, like chemicals in the air, food, and water, metal in the air, food, and water, ongoing immune challenges such as viral, bacterial, parasite, fungal, etc. And then foods that you may be eating that your body's actually having problems with. You might call these food sensitivities, but when your digestive system breaks down, all of a sudden you find yourself sensitive to all kinds of things that you weren't sensitive to before.
Maybe just hot food in general, for example, if it gets that bad.
Hot food, cold food, all different types of foods. I mean, it gets to the point where you can't eat anything.
When we talk about digestive health and acid reflux, I imagine there's a spectrum. For example, you could have some kind of problem 24 hours a day where it's difficult for you to swallow, or you may have those burning sensations in your throat. But what about those who may just have a meal and then have indigestion, or maybe have more indigestion than typically somebody would? In other words, an hour after the meal, you're still feeling that pain.
I mean, an occasional experience like that is not acid reflux. I mean, it's an acute episode of indigestion, which can happen to anybody. The question is it happening consistently, more than 2 or 3 times a week, and inexplicably, with respect to whatever food you're putting in your mouth?
So that may indicate a bigger problem right there. It's not just particular spicy foods, for example, which are making you hurt. It's just about anything. That may be actually a red flag. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's very common for people to reach for an over-the-counter antacid. The problem is those antacids are laced with ingredients that have no place in the body, like aluminum. An aluminized chemistry in the antacids presents a huge problem for individuals. Aluminum in any fashion will destroy nerves and nervous tissue.
Why do these antacids have these additional ingredients? Are they preservatives, or do they add color? I mean, why would it have aluminum in it, for example?
Specifically, you'd have to go to each individual over-the-counter product to explain why it would be there. But your description of why they could be there is fairly accurate. The key is that the understanding that acid reflux is due to excessive acid is a misunderstanding. The overwhelming majority of people that have acid reflux don't have too much stomach acid. They have too little.
Now, that seems entirely counterintuitive.
Correct. And the reason you get the acid is more from fermentation of undigested food in the gut rather than the overproduction of hydrochloric acid.
So could you have a digestive problem which is contributing to the absence of acid in your body?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, because you said your body maybe isn't processing the food correctly, it's not digesting it properly, and that creates the absence of, or the lowering levels of acid.
The reason why simply addressing symptom relief with over-the-counter medications or prescription medications like Nexium or Prilosec or those types of things is that the stomach is the cauldron where, number one, it is part of the beginning defense mechanisms for your immune system. Right? The highly acidic environment in the stomach can eliminate, eradicate, kill bacteria, viruses, parasites that shouldn't be occupying the space.
So I'm guessing there is a healthy level of acid that we want to maintain.
A must. It is the most acidic space in the body. So it's really important that you maintain that. Now, when your body stops being able to produce enough hydrochloric acid, right, that's an indication that, number one, you've got nutritional deficiencies, and number two, you've been eating foods you shouldn't have for a considerable period of time.
Well, that's not a good thing. And how do you measure that? How do you know? Is there some way you can put a dipstick, in effect, into your stomach and tell whether or not you have the proper acid levels?
You don't need to. You don't have to measure it. You just know whether you have symptoms or you don't have symptoms.
Okay, so if your body's out of whack in some way.
That's the measuring stick.
And I'm guessing, too, these digestive issues which we're talking about are the body's way of telling you there's a problem.
Thank you. That's exactly right. So if you're having this problem and the problem, begins with a little bit, say, indigestion, once, twice, every week, then buckle up, because simply addressing the symptoms will only create more problems down the road. As I said, number one, if you're using an anti-acid, where the real problem is too little acid, now you're shutting your body's ability to produce hydrochloric acid even more dramatically, which then shuts down your body's ability to utilize calcium or other minerals that must be broken down in your body. Or from a digestive standpoint, it doesn't allow for complete breakdown to the degree necessary of the proteins that you're eating, thus presenting your body with much larger molecules, which in turn create problems down the way in your intestines.
I'd like to know, though, and I think I already know the answer, but I'll ask the question, why have we bought into this idea that if we're having these kinds of digestive issues, we have too much acid, so therefore we must take a medication which suppresses the acid?
Because that's what it feels like, right? Burning feels like that, as far as I can tell. Because the utilization of antacids in these situations, chronic situations, is, from what I can see, almost always the wrong thing to do if you want to treat the root cause of the condition. So, it's like everything. Somebody says it, somebody repeats it, 10 people repeat it, 100 people repeat it, 1,000 people repeat it. Next thing you know, it's true. Gee, I wonder where that... No, we're not going there.
Well, we all know.
No.
Okay.
No.
We know the answer to that.
This is not a political show. This is a health show. So let's just stick with that. But the bottom line is this is very true. When you mix business and medicine, which is essentially that's the system that we have, right? We say big pharma. Pharmaceutical companies are always trying to tout the fact that they're trying to help people. But the bottom line is they have third-party interests at stake. Shareholders. And shareholders don't care whether you're helping people or not. Shareholders care whether they're making money. It's just the way it is.
So we have these...
I'm not judging.
No need to judge. We have these medications which we've indicated can create larger problems. If you try to ignore digestive issues, are they just necessarily going to get worse?
Absolutely.
Okay, so your body won't self-correct necessarily.
No, once it's on that slope, it's not going to self-correct. And as long as you continue to suppress the symptoms, deeper, more severe conditions will arise. Ulcers will begin to form. And then, of course, oftentimes, antibiotics will be used for ulcers. And what do antibiotics do?
You tell me. What do they do?
Totally destroy the microbiome. What's the microbiome? Well, we're going to talk about that. Do we have time? We can get started.
We've got plenty of time for the microbiome. So what is it? The
microbiome is that part of your body's processing mechanism. Your gut is filled with microflora, all different kinds of things. And I'm going to talk largely about the bacteria in your gut. And the overwhelming majority of these bacteria are positive. They're breaking down, continuing the breakdown of the food in your stomach. They're continuing to provide an immune protective process. And when you take antibiotics, you basically they're not selective, so they wipe out all kinds of beneficial bacteria in your gut. And there's research to show that most antibiotics, save one or two, it can take when taken, one course, when taken, can have an effect on the microbiome, a negative impact on the microbiome for anywhere between 1 month and 1 year.
That's a long time for just
1 month and 1 year for one course of antibiotics. Imagine if you're taking multiple courses, because Western medicine has decided that your condition is in some part due to a bacteria. But when you understand that environment is everything, and that when an environment is hostile toward any kind of microbiota in the good way, right? That is, for example, restoring normal hydrochloric acid to your gut, making it almost impossible for harmful bacteria to enter your system, at least that way. Breathing, of course, is another way. Touching is another way.
So these antibiotics, Paul, are they designed specifically to attack these bacteria, or is that a side effect, or is it all of the above?
When you say these bacteria, what are you referring to?
Well, the healthy bacteria.
Yes. No, the healthy bacteria goes along with what they might might conceive of what unhealthy bacteria is. But that's not the problem. It never was. It never was. Right. But when you use symptom elimination techniques and don't treat the root cause, you develop deeper and deeper, more severe conditions. So at the very end of it, your system may be so weakened, so undermined, that even a good nutritional program, and I'm talking a very few people here, but even a good a nutritional program won't be effective enough. But I haven't had very many of those. The overwhelming majority of people only need to, number one, cut out sugar. Number two, probably cut out grains for a period of time. But if you want to know specifically what you have to do, what you out there have to do, you have to get evaluated. You have to have the information that a nutrition response testing evaluation will provide. That's what saved my life. I read all kinds of articles. I saw all kinds of practitioners. I read all kinds of books, right? But I didn't have the benefit of the unique individual characteristics that are required to break the case.
What does sugar do, for example, to create problems with our stomachs?
Well, number one, it feeds the bugs.
Okay, that's just one thing, though, but we're addressing a particular part of our bodies, which is the microbiome. So it's doing that. It's actually providing an environment in which the unhealthy bacteria can thrive.
Correct.
Okay, so that's sugar. I'm going to guess there are other foods based on an individual's individual needs that have other aggravating effects.
Adding fermented foods to your diet is really important, and that's for a person who's suffering from digestive problems or not. So things like a dairy drink, kefir, Kefir, might be useful. Fermented vegetables like cabbage, sauerkraut, might be useful.
It always comes back to sauerkraut.
It always comes back to sauerkraut.
So if you, though, have a hot dog which has mustard, mayonnaise, ketchup, onions, relish, and some sauerkraut, are you necessarily doing yourself a lot of good?
Take out the relish unless it's not sweetened with sugar or sweet.
Actually,
take out the ketchup unless it's isn't sweetened with corn syrup or sugar or honey or maple syrup, and you got yourself and probably the bun.
Yeah, let's leap ahead. The bun has some sugar in it. The hot dog isn't going to be good for you at all. So maybe by the time you're left removing all the unhealthy ingredients, you have some sauerkraut on a plate.
No, I mean, I have hot dogs all the time, and I have sauerkraut all the time, and mustard all the time, and pickles all the time. I have it.
Okay,
I love
so are there particular kinds of hot dogs, though, which may be healthier than others?
The brand of hot dogs that I use is called Applegate, organic, pasture-raised meats.
So my point with all that is, let's say, for example, we want to have some fermented foods. In this case, sauerkraut is part of our diets. You can do it in a healthy way by putting it on your hot dog. But maybe you should skip some of the unhealthy hot dog ingredients that we may be accustomed to. Get the right kind of hot dog, but you're going to have a good tasting snack right there with the fermented foods. And I don't see how you fail to come out ahead with that arrangement.
Are you hungry?
Always. 24/7.
I could tell.
But, I'm just giving an example there of how you can take something that's healthy, make it a part of something that's good. Good tasting, too.
Aloe vera or aloe vera gel is a product that can be used in the short term to help eliminate some of the symptoms without the side effects. The protein pump inhibitors, which are the prescribed medications for acid reflux, are basically associated with heightened risks for chronic kidney disease, pneumonia, osteoporosis, and dementia.
All those things could be related to digestive issues?
In part, no, related to the treatment for the digestive
No,
issues.
okay. So again, the cure is worse than the disease. And you're creating all these other, or at least the potential for all these other issues.
Not to mention the fact that you're actually not treating the root cause of the issue.
Right, which it always comes back to that.
So not
doesn't it?
only do you get to experience the wonderful, effulgence of acid reflux, but then you get to potentially down the road, unbeknownst to you in the present time, the wonderful world of kidney disease and dementia and osteoporosis and whatnot.
I also wrote down the wonderful effulgence of acid reflux.
Did you write that down?
That's going to be the title of my first novel right there.
Actually, it sounds like it could be.
Yeah, it works very well, I think. Sounds very literary.
Yeah, but none of that is necessary for the overwhelming majority of people. Not to mention the fact that acid reflux can also be caused not just by a degeneration of your digestive system, but also a side effect of most every medication that most people take these days. Right? If you look at the side effects of blood pressure medications and statin drugs and antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs and anyway, the list goes on. My gosh, my brain is overfilled with the number of medications that can adversely affect your digestive system.